smoother. They won't clog up your arteries as easily as a saturated fat or trans fats. So our pan's nice and hot, as you can see here. And we're going to put the skin side down first because we want it to get the initial heat and get that nice crispiness on it.
Matt, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just curious how I go about removing the skin.
It's pretty simple. You can just pull up the skin from the top side and use your knife. Just the tension from pulling the skin, you won't have to apply much pressure, and you can just slowly work your way down, and you won't waste any of the meat and just remove all the skin. That's kind of why I had the cutting board, but I decided to. So while that's searing, another key thing to remember when using chicken breast versus fattier meats is that they have a tendency to dry out more because there's none of that intramuscular fat to keep it moist. So you want to be very careful about how you handle it. So now I'm going to talk about the mushrooms that we will be including in our chicken marsala. A lot of people say you need to remove the stems or take out the gills, and it just depends on which type of mushroom you're using. Today we have brown beech mushrooms, big shiitakes, and little shiitakes or cremini. And each one of these has different stems, so I've taken them out here, and you can see the bigger ones, or the more thick ones, are really fibrous, and those are the undesirable ones. So they're really hard to break down, and they have really woody, earthy undertones. So you can go around and see the difference between the little cremini, the huge shiitake, and the brown beech mushrooms. So if you pass those around, you just squeeze them, you'll feel the tenderness and or how fibrous they are. So for the brown beech, I'm leaving the stems on because they are relatively tender, and I like the aesthetic look of it. And for the other ones, I've removed the stems. So a simple way to remove the stems is just to go 12, 6 o'clock, go straight out, they'll come right out. And you can discard those, or you can save them for vegetable and or mushroom stock down the road. Now that the chicken breast has been on the initial high heat, I've turned it down a little just so it doesn't burn, but still stays rendering in some of that olive oil, those healthy fats, to get that crispiness. And a big thing with this is people tend to constantly check it, and you don't want to do that. You want to let it go for, I would say, at least 4 or 5 minutes before you touch it. Actually, you've turned the heat down and adjusted for that. Because if you try and check it before it's seared all the way, it could get stuck and it could ruin the sear, which locks in all the juices, the crispiness, and the aesthetics of your overall dish. So I know as much as you're going to want to check it, just turn the heat down and let it go. Now, this has been on there for a little bit. We're going to flip it over. Well, first, I'm going to season both sides. And it's good to season from a height. That way you can see the coverage you're getting versus up close. You may drop spurts and have uneven seasoning. Just a basic technique that sometimes people forget. So here you can see the light, crispy brown we've gotten, and I just didn't mess with it, I let it sit. We're going to let the other side sear a little bit. And I'll turn the heat back up since it had lost a little initially from the meat absorbing it. Now, this searing, or this browning on the outside is called Maillard browning, similar to caramelization from sugars in vegetables and starches. It's the caramelization of sugars and proteins, and it creates the browning on the bottom of the pan, which is known as fond, which is a good part of flavor when we're going to make this pan sauce. So you don't want to burn that, and to release that because it'll get stuck, we're actually, since this other side has now been seared, we're going to deglaze with a little marsala wine. You can use any liquid. The rapid change in temperature from hot to room temperature is going to cause that release of the fond or the browning off the bottom of the pan. You can use acids, vinegars. So that's what you want to hear and see when you're deglazing. You don't need a whole time, just enough to cool down the tan. But you can use acids from vinegars, tomatoes, has natural acid in them. That's known as ginseng. The acid from tomato releases it like for pasta sauces and stuff like that. Now, oh, sorry, one more thing that I forgot to mention with these mushrooms in regards to beneficial properties for cardiovascular patients is they're not a huge source of fiber, but they do have moderate amounts of fiber. And fiber, as well as promoting satiety and fullness, regularness. It means you're full, so you stay full longer. You don't have to eat foods that don't have fiber that maybe just keep you full for an hour and then you have to constantly keep eating or snacking. More so like processed foods and stuff like that. So it keeps you full for longer. It just means you are satisfied. Your hunger has been satisfied. But the fiber also helps to reduce bad cholesterol, or LDL cholesterol, which I'm sure you all get checked regularly. So that's good. Another key aspect of fiber in regards to cardiovascular. Now, I'm going to remove this chicken breast.
Is Marcella wine healthy for everybody?
Healthy for cardiovascular or healthy for you in general?
For people generally.
Wine in general I know has antioxidants. The properties of the wine once they hit the heat tend to be lost just from the denaturing of all the beneficial stuff in there. So it's more so just for the flavoring. I'm not sure of the other ingredients, but I think overall you're pretty safe with wines. I have to double check that for you. Yes?
You said LDL cholesterol?
Yes, that's your low density lipoprotein or cholesterol. And so you have two cholesterols, HDL and LDL, and the LDL is the detrimental one. The HDL is actually beneficial for you. So this fiber can help to prevent that cholesterol blocking your arteries and things of that nature. This wine is still reducing in this pan a little. I want to get it mostly evaporated as it's eating up the fond off the bottom for the flavor. And actually, instead of adding more oil, I will just saute this garlic and shallots in here because I'm going to cook them just until they've sweated out or become clear and translucent, so the oil is not really necessary. This leftover wine will do the job. Now, an interesting or cool way to cut the shallots, save some time, because I know many of you may not be in the kitchen and cook all the time, and you hate going in there and having to chop everything. So, one way to save time is, so I've taken, the shallot would come in a bowl. So these are, garlic and shallots are both from the onion family. So it would come similar to an onion, but more ovular. So I cut it in half and cut the top of it off and left the tail end on the side that has the roots. And then I'm simply going to put it flat on the table, run my knife down the width. Twice is enough, and you don't want to run it all the way to the tail. You want it to create like a fan type thing. And then we're going to go the opposite. If I cut this way first, we're going to flip it 90 degrees and go down. And depending on how small you want these pieces is how far apart you would space these cuts. So now it's really a fan that goes both ways. I can't hold it right now or else it'll break apart. And then you're just going to rough chop it up into little pieces. Depending how small you want them is up to you. And so you can see here some of the pieces and how that goes. It's much quicker, much easier. Yes. So I am going to now add my, one other beneficial property of things in the onion family, shallots and garlic, is that they are good for cardiovascular patients because they help to open up your vessels and allow blood flow, creating less stress on your heart. So I know they call it garlic causes bad breath, but you can eat, they come in supplement pills if that's what you prefer, but it's just overall good for your heart. Now we're going to add these mushrooms. And I don't need a good brown on them either because we're going to make a pan sauce. Regularly, you could do these on high heat if you wanted to create that caramelization. I'm just going to let them go in with some chicken stock, or I'm using vegetable stock today. But you can use dairy products for a sauce. They just have more fat, saturated fats and cholesterol. So in regards to you, I recommend using a stock. You could finish with heavy cream if desirable, but then again, you're going to create a higher risk for problems with your heart later. So while these mushrooms are cooking down, I'm going to teach you how we thicken a pan sauce. And there's two ways to do it. Before I added my stock, I could have dusted the pan, my mushrooms, with flour. It's referred to as sanjang, and then let that cook down a little bit so the flour wasn't raw. Added my chicken stock, let it continue to cook down, and that would have been my thickener. But I am going to use a more quick and easy approach for those of you who don't like to spend all day in the kitchen and want to get things done quick. And this is called a slurry with cornstarch. So we have a little bit of cold water here in this bowl, and I am going to add cornstarch. And kind of, maybe let's just say a 1-to-3 ratio for now. 1 part cornstarch, 3 parts water, and you can adjust from there. You're gonna stir it up with your finger. It's gonna feel like goop at first. That's fine, you just gotta work it in. And then you can add this to your pot. So it almost has like a skim milk consistency right now. Does anybody want to feel it? See? All right. And you can kind of rub your fingers and you'll feel it has that skim milk consistency. So it's not going to be like water, and that's what's going to give it that thickening agent. So we're going to put this cornstarch in. I would not add all at once. Depending on the volume of the sauce is going to depend on how much you're going to need to add. Cornstarch is not going to thicken until it comes to a complete boil. So add a little bit, let it come, stir it up. Let it come to a boil, and if the bubbles are no longer rapid and vigorous, like when you boil water, but more slow, maybe a little bit more, that means that you've hit the right thickness. And this thickness is referred to as nappe, which means that it has a thick enough viscosity to coat the back of the spoon without running off like water would. And don't be afraid if you add too much, you can always add more stock to thin it back out and adjust from there. So you can see here, it's the slow bubbles and the thickness of the sauce. I can't really tilt it too far. But another thing to know about cornstarch versus using flour is it creates a vibrant, shiny sheen, which the flour wouldn't. It gives it more of a rustic appeal, so that's just a trade-off depending on what you use. So now, I'm going to steal a plate from back here, and we are going to plate this. With the magic of TV, I have already prepared chicken over one of these ovens. And just so you're aware, when handling chicken, it's one of the most dangerous proteins because it has a high percentage of carrying salmonella in its raw state. So the internal cooking temperature that you want to get chicken to before calling it done is 165. This one has been temped and has reached 165. You can allow for 5 degrees carryover cooking, which just means the residual heat from the oven itself and from locked in the meat is going to carry it over 5 degrees. And like I said, you don't want to dry the chicken out too much, so you want to stop it at 160. Let's play it safe and say 2. It'll carry over past the marker that you need. All right, so you're going to put down a little bit of this. Does anybody have any questions thus far? Anything at all? Does anybody not like mushrooms? Because these are really good mushrooms. So no? All right. And then we have our lovely chicken breast here. some of these mushrooms have been sitting in the juicer longer, so they're going to have absorbed more flavor. So I will top with that. And we are going to garnish with a little bit of parsley. A helpful hint that I have, let me show you this. A helpful hint that I have found when trying to distinguish herbs, because when I first started in the culinary industry, when I was in a rush or when I was just new, I had a hard time telling parsley from cilantro. So, one good way, I have a sample of both here. Parsley comes in two different things, flat leaf and curly leaf. The ridges or jags on these are much bigger and looser, while cilantro has much tighter, smaller jags. So that's a good way to distinguish between the two, because other than that, they can look very similar. And also, if you just smell it or taste it, this is going to taste like salsa, and this is not. So that's one way. We're just going to give these a quick rough chop. You can ball them up lightly, and it's not to bruise them, but still, you're going to activate the volatile oils, which creates the main flavors that are found in herbs. And then garnish as you please. And that is a quick version of healthy cardiovascular chicken masala. So to I'm going to recap it. All right, that's it.
I don't know if it was quick, but